still there, Nicole?
Yes, it is. It's over the green statement, but we can see everything else.
Okay. So key comparison. Trust versus wills. Can you read that paragraph?
Both wills and trusts are essential estate planning tools, but they serve different purposes and operate under very different conditions. Understanding the distinction is critical to building a plan that protects your legacy with maximum efficiency.
Now, a will. Activated only after death. Subject to the probate process. Becomes a public document upon filing. That's why you do have to file it with your local authority. Limited to post-death asset distribution. Trust. Active during your lifetime and beyond. Starting to see, some of the things that it makes it doable. Bypasses probate entirely. Remains private, not a public record. That's why when you hear certain companies talk about, the trust, there's a trust that's on top of this trust, and the trust is on top of that trust. It's like, wait a minute, by the time you start attempting to go through all the layers, legally you can't find it. It's like, okay, who's in charge of this trust? It's none of your darn business. That's why it's a trust. Trust to mind your own business. And offers nuanced control over timing and conditions of distribution. That's why I know a couple of weeks ago when I talked about like the estate of Quincy Jones, and come to find out because of the children sharing some of the details, he had trust that covered most of his stuff from his stuff that he's produced over 60, 70 years, his record label ownerships. I mean, all the different things that he had in entirety. And this man ended up with like I think it was close to over 9 figure estate. And then some of the children decided, some of his intellectual intellectual property, they sold part of it, or got another couple of $100 million. So because of the publishing and things of that nature. Only reason why we knew that because of what they chose to share. But technically, if stuff is under the trust, it's about saying that, yeah, I may have created this, but I put this under this entity. And now this entity is going to keep collecting all this, just like Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson created those trusts, which means that even when this movie came out a couple of weeks ago, and you're starting to hear about, a resurgence and people listening to his music, and now Spotify streams and all this other stuff, all that money that's being made goes into the trust. And then the trust decides how it's going to get those finances will get disseminated. And there's no one darn business except people who know what's going on in the trust. And that is a great world to live in. Now you're not moving in the space of idios, which is the Greek word for minding your own business, but you're moving in the space of recognizing, like, if this has nothing to do with you, this is a family matter, and we're handling this within the family. So that's why trusts are important, even at whatever respective level that you feel that you're at, even at this particular time. And since Ms. Johnson said that there's a box covering the screen, I'll read the wealth strategy. Trusts are the engine of legacy flow. While a will states your wishes, a trust enforces them during your life and after it without court intervention. And that is clear. You want people out of your business. See, idios is minding your own business, but you don't want people in your business. Because if you created a lasting legacy, you should desire for your family to enjoy it, not for it to start being cut up and being wasted by paying entities that had no participation in how you were able to generate or to grow those particular levels. And that's what it's ultimately about. And as we come to the final slide for this evening, financial literacy integration number 2. And if you're looking for number 1, that was probably episodes 59 and 60. Those were the first 2 episodes. So if you're looking for financial literacy integration number 1, you can go to my YouTube channel and go catch those respective episodes to get caught up. But this is financial literacy integration number 2, ownership versus access. And can you read the paragraph, Ms. Nicole?
There is a fundamental difference between owning an asset and merely having access to income. Access is temporary, it lasts as long as your ability to earn. Ownership is permanent. Read that again. Ownership is permanent. It exists independent of your presence and can be transferred, grown, and protected across generations.
That's the reason why when you hear, and you may hear me talk about certain families like the Ford family or the Rockefellers, or now we can talk about the Buffetts and the Gates and all this other stuff. There's a reason why not only will their foundations outlast them, but their ability to recognize that ownership is permanent. Or why sometimes people will buy land and says, you're not even fixing up the land. No, Ted Turner, who just recently transitioned, the person who started CNN, TBS, TNT, and all other stuff. Um, at one point he was like the number one landowner in the United States. He said, you got all this land in the Dakotas and Montana and this and that, and you own in like hundreds of thousands of acres. Don't worry about it. But then you start to see the tax strategy because now he started growing farm. He started growing stuff on it. He started having cattle. And all of a sudden, all these were tax strategies. It's like, yeah, I got all these hundreds of thousand acres. I got bison. I'm raising bison. If you're raising bison, that means it's considered farmland. If you're creating something that can end up being part of the food chain, you get tax credits for that. And all of a sudden, you start to look at these as, and that's why they said ownership is a powerful tax shelter. And we have to get out of the mindset of being so disturbed that, the rich supposed to pay more. Of course. But don't get mad that they figured out how to work the system appropriately. And the same way, regardless if we like Donald Trump or not, technically he hasn't broken the law. He may have bent some rules. We can see he's bending a whole heap of rules. And yeah, some laws he did break. What we're talking about from the standpoint of what is on the books, and that's the reason why, as Ms. Johnson stated earlier, about getting the wise counsel and having the right people in your corner. If you hired the right lawyers and the right people who did the investigation, says, yo, you can do this and you can do that. This is not breaking the law. Don't break the law. Which if you're bending it, if you're bending the law, you're not breaking it. And too many times, people who figure out ways to keep what they're supposed to keep or only show what they need to show, they're bending the law. Now, until they break the law, they should be punished. But if they're bending the law, it's like a child saying, a child, you didn't catch the child doing something, but you know they did it. But you don't have the proof. So even though you can sit there and get upset and be disturbed by it, says, do you have the proof that this individual did X, Y, Z? Says, no, we don't. So you got to take that out, throw that out of the court. Do we have any other evidence? No? Okay, case dismissed. You have nothing to present to show that they broke the law. Regardless, even if you're thinking your bones they did, show me the proof. And we, as especially African American, Latino communities, we all have to recognize that, look, we got to get smarter. And that's what the Comeback Collective Circle is about. It's about us growing a community that we are becoming fundamentally aware from a financial literacy standpoint and an ontological standpoint that we are powerful individuals and we have to move as such. We're not moving in a small, minimized way no more. We are powerful people, and we have to have these relevant conversations to make sure that we are on the respective pages that will benefit us in the long term. So I'll read these last 3 points. Number one, access. Income you rely on a paycheck, a salary, or a client's payment. The moment you stop, the flow stops. This creates financial dependency on employers, on contracts, on your own continued labor. That's access. And there's times that we may be in certain spaces where, we're moving in that access area, and then we have to start moving out of access to move into number two, which is ownership, dealing with your assets. You hold properties, you have businesses, you have some investments, or even intellectual property that generates value independently. These assets can be titled, protected, and passed on. And building a legacy that grows without you. That's what happens when you have ownership. Ownership is that when you go to bed at night and you wake up in the morning and they says, "Oh, you made like $10,000 last night." It's like, wait a minute, we did? Yeah, you made $10,000 last night in your sleep. Wonderful. So how much are we planning on making a day? Oh, we're gonna try to, grow another 15, 20 grand while you're awake. Oh, that's not bad. A $35,000 day. That's a wonderful possibility. It's a wonderful possibility. Why not? And so remember that ownerships is that middle portion which allows you to recognize the power in having your assets. You have a business, some of your business income should be going into investing in other things, not just always just replenishing whatever it is that you're doing. It's like, okay, while I'm still focused on this may be my main thing. But let me invest in some real estate over here. Maybe let me make sure my money's in some investments over there. Make sure that's in other areas where it can be bringing back, as you heard me coin the phrase, which I'm trademarking, pregnant money. Your money should come back pregnant. And you're happy it went out there and was a little loose. Come on back with some more friends and some babies. Because what we're going to do, we're going to send you back out so they can go out there and come back pregnant. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what the wealthy do. You don't do something and say, "Oh, we had a great day." Yeah, we had a great day. Okay, how do we duplicate it? That's when you start moving that you're moving in that ownership aspect, and it's not just about access. And finally, about the legacy. That's how you're transferring all the stuff that you worked hard for. The owned assets, properly structured, becomes generational wealth. The shift from income earner to asset owner is the single most important transition in building a lasting legacy. Go ahead, Mr. Franklin. I see your hand is up.
You mentioned about the pregnancy and going out and coming back in. Is when you say that, are you meaning? Um, I'll take Walmart for example. Um, it's in the plus, right? Are you saying to pull that plus out and stick it somewhere else? Could you explain?
Well, if you're looking at what Sam Walton did was he started with one general store in Bentonville, Arkansas. And he recognized he took the general store concept and expanded it out. He wanted to do a general store that became sort of like the precursor of the supermarket. He started right there in the middle of the country. And then after a while, he started to recognize when people were enjoying the fact of coming to this type of store, he said, okay, what's the next space? I need to expand. So first I started with purchasing land because he knew the type of stores that he decided to build had to be big stores so it can be a one-stop place to get everyone's dollar, to get that $1. That's why in some Walmarts you can buy a gun in Walmart. You can buy your groceries in Walmart. If you're looking for a TV, you can buy it. If you're looking for a cell phone, if you're looking for your laundry detergent, if you're looking for clothes, some people can go to Walmart as a one-stop. So what ends up happening is people come in there, they circulate their dollars in there, and what they do, they put there and they start investing the money back out. Okay, maybe we need to find distribution. Maybe we need to find how we're going to have warehouses, how we're going to buy more land so we can build more stores. What's happening is the money comes in and you're sending it back out to work. The more you send it back out to work and then more money comes in, it's like with any concept, any business, the more money that goes out and it still comes back in and then you're still reinvesting. Now that reinvestment is the pregnant part because now you're putting back in so you can make more. And it's not something that's going to come back instantaneously. It's not something you're not looking for the quick dollar. That's why ownership is permanent, as it states in the paragraph above. Ownership is permanent. Now, the more and more you keep rinsing, repeating, and doing the same thing, you turn around one day, it's like, wait a minute. We can end up with 100 or 1,000 stores or 10,000 stores, and it's like, oh, we kept rinsing, repeating to the point that this thing is now beyond the science. We're coming to you, Miss Johnson. But this thing becomes such a science because that's where compound interest kicks in. And now the ability to, now your buying power is much more at a powerful space. And especially pre-pandemic and all the stuff that we dealt with pre-2019, everyone knew Walmart was the number one buyer when it came to cereal or certain things because people desired to get into that Walmart infrastructure because they knew that their stuff were going to be sent across the country or sometimes globally. That means they have more access to consumers for their product to get into those homes, for those people to like those products and then go back and say, we need some more of that. So the same way of pregnant money. Hopefully that helped explain it to you from the Walmart angle. And I know Miss Johnson had her hand raised.
Yeah, when you introduce the term of pregnant money, uh, maybe I was thinking about it small. I was thinking of my frame of reference is like 90s movies in the drug game. You buy something, you sell it, you make money, you expand. Or even thinking, I think it started in the late 90s, the water boys who would buy a case of water and then stand on the highway and sell the bottle of water for $1 each. And then they buy another case of water, and little by little,
Exactly.
they're building profit. So is that
Exactly.
okay? Got it. Got it.
Exactly. What Ms. Johnson is referring to, especially in the New York City tri-state area, there were young people who started to recognize. They went and bought, may have cost them $6, $7 for, say, 24, or sometimes, depending on the stuff was on sale, 35 bottles of water. Regular 16 ounces bottles of water or half a liter. They chill it, have the ice packet, may have to make a little investment for a cooler. Stick the water in there. They're nice and cold. It's a hot day in summertime. People driving by, yo, dollar, water, dollar. People touch us. Oh, it's cold water. Yeah, $1. Here, take the dollar. Thanks for the water. Now you think about it. If it costs them, save us $7 for 35 bottles, that means it only costs them 20 cents a bottle. They're selling it for $1. That means they've already made a 400% markup on what they invested. If they're smart and not just out there just spending the money, they go back out there now. They made their $35 off those 35 bottles of water. They go buy 2 cases and so on and so forth. And before you know it, if you got a couple of people helping you out or this, that, and third, and you tell them, like, look, for every $35, every case you sell, I'm willing to pay you $7 a case. That's why Ms. Johnson was referring it to certain illicit activities. Okay, you stand on this corner, you sell this. Here's your cut for standing on this corner and selling whatever. And the more and more they sell, the more and more they earn. Then after a while, people, if they chose to either get out of that illicit life or to expand in that illicit life, then started recognizing, okay, how do I buy the product or get whatever that product is? And I start purchasing it, and then I start selling it for myself. And then after a while, the more you purchase, the less of the price. But you're still selling it for whatever the market bears for it. Then you start investing more and investing more and investing more. And then before you know it, it's like, wait a minute, how did these people get so whatever? It's the same concept. It's business. It's capitalism. We're not making it wrong because just the same way John F. Kennedy's father was a bootlegger. Pro Alcohol was prohibited. That's when you hear prohibition. Alcohol was illegal. But the Kennedys made their money on bootlegging, getting that whiskey across the border from Canada and selling it to the people who still desired to have liquor. And he made millions. And the mob made millions. And everyone made millions. Then when prohibition ended, okay, now alcohol is no longer illegal, but by that time, these people already had made the money that they made. There's always ways to figure out how you can desire to get that pregnant money, which can turn into ownership and assets. And then eventually, if you work it properly and then structure it properly, as we shared earlier about the wills and the trust, the next thing you know, you have something to have a legacy that you can transfer. Someone can look up at a picture of you that if you had commissioned of yourself, says, you know what, the reason why we're able to live the comfortable life we have because that person was willing to put in the work. And now we got to keep that legacy going. And we can't. And with that being said, we are complete. Any questions, any thoughts, anything that came up for you about this conversation when it comes to legacy plan? Next week, we're going to complete the arc, but any thoughts about why a trust isn't so important and a will? Yes, we all need to have a will. You have to have a will and start figuring out, find the right people who can assist you in making sure you get a trust. And trust is not just a United States concept. Trusts are done all across the globe. We brought that conceptualization from the fact that we once was under Europe and all that stuff. It's a trust. When they talk about the King's Trust and stuff like that, these people not saying it says, King Charles owns all this stuff. No, he owns all that stuff by the family trust and the goodwill that he's part of the monarchy and the royal family. So, any thoughts? Any questions? Any feedback before we start to bring this train into a close? So I had to make sure you give everyone an opportunity.
Hey,
Oh,
I
I see
got a
Miss
quick question.
McIntyre. Okay, we're gonna go to Miss McIntyre, and then we're gonna come to Mr. Davis. Go ahead, Miss McIntyre.
Yes. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Just a comment. I think when Nicole mentioned about the living will, it's so important working with the elderly
Mm,
and seeing a lot of, we've had deaths
hmm
and not only deaths, but people who are now demented.
mm.
Um, and cannot necessarily make decisions for themselves. That healthcare surrogate it is just so important, that, we never really think about it, but dementia happens so quickly these days. You're fine today and tomorrow, your mind goes. So it's very important that in that living will, you're also identifying that, healthcare surrogate to make those medical decisions for you. And I'm complete.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. That's powerful, powerful, powerful. Mr. Davis, Mr. Indiana Fever in the building. What say you?
Hey, how you doing? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Quick question. I'm a little bit on the heavy side, and it's difficult for me to find the proper insurance and things like that as a owner operator of a business. Is there any suggestions of what, besides losing weight, of course, to
Mhm.
find the right place to find these type of insurance policies and things like that?
Well, unfortunately, you hit it right on the head. Part of it, you would probably have to lose some weight. I mean, you can still get the insurance, but usually, especially if you're talking, as we talked about a little ways back, especially if you're looking for whole life and things of that nature, they're gonna want some sort of medical workup on you because now that gives them an idea on your insurability. And I know it can seem kind of like shaping from a class standpoint. But, it's just like any business. They want to protect their investment. Now they recognize that they eventually will have to cut a check. But now if someone is healthier, there's less of a probability, even they can quantify because everything is based on some sort of metric or matrix that they have. And so, if you position yourself in that space where you can lose a little weight and things of that nature, that will help you in the long run because that's going to help you with your insurability. And at the same time,
Gotcha.
even if you're not as insured, you still can create those wills and trusts and things of that nature so that even if it's not insurability, now you're figuring out how you're taking the money that you're earning from your business and putting it in other entities that can start to bring back that pregnant money. And as that pregnant money is working for you, all that stuff can be put under the trust, and you just have the right financial advisors and the right lawyers that can assist you with those things.
Correct. And another question. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Another question: how do we maneuver around tariffs and port fees? Because right now I'm getting slaughtered my business as far as importing things from different countries and things like that. And it's a very tight market right now because it's difficult for me to. I mean, I could sell a lot, and I do sell a lot, but it's difficult for me to lock in a great price on different things because of these tariffs and port fees and things like that. And I got shipments coming from the Strait of Hormuz right now, but I haven't gotten in the last 6 to 8 weeks because of the situation going there. How do I ensure my customers that these items that will come in, but it's not, it's just not for sure exactly when they're gonna come in. And how do I keep
Unfortunately,
that customer too?
unfortunately, um, and I don't know how you voted, so we're not gonna get into that. But unfortunately, your state, Indiana, along with a bunch of other states that's probably circling around you or in circumference of you, all voted for this administration. And all the stuff that he was able to utilize that political will, which now he translated into raising tariffs, which people who had any good, just basic economic sense knew was never a good thing at the same time, because those costs are always translated back to
Right.
the end consumer. That's why they're talking about the
Correct.
hundreds of billions of dollars that the federal government has collected, not the states. We're talking about the federal government has collected in tariff fees. That's why it's still in this kind of morose right now in regards to, do they have to kick back that as refunds? And usually those refunds will go to those companies, and then at the same time, will that end up to the consumer? Because the consumer we ultimately pay for those tariffs. It was an unfair put upon tax that was not enacted by Congress. This was all unilaterally by the executive division of the United States, and it just shows the lack of herewithal what this Congress allowed this 47th president to do. So as you're making a statement about your stuff stuck in transit or when you're going to get it, you and probably tens of thousands of other small businesses are all experiencing the same thing. And all we can say is, hopefully this procedural vote that they did today, whereas now they're attempting to reel back some of his war powers, because the president of the United States can't just go to war. And even if he does, he only has a mind within 60 days, he has to inform the Congress. And then the Congress has the ability to say, okay, are we going to continue this thing or not continue this thing? And that's why this bending of the rules, that's what he's been doing, because that's the reason why we've been in a ceasefire. The war hasn't ended, but we're at a ceasefire. So technically, we're still at war, but we're not firing the shot,
Hmm.
because we keep saying we're pushing back the ceasefire, or we're allowing this ceasefire to be expanded. You're trying to reset the clock. And anyone with just good common sense can sit there and say, wait a minute, you're bending the rules. He hasn't broken it, but he's bended it. In the same way that people do, and sometimes people get disturbed by how people who are moving towards from rich to wealthy to affluent, they bend the rules. They feel, oh, wait a minute, I can get away with this. If I do this, even though it's bending, I didn't break the rule. So I'm gonna keep doing that. Because I'm not breaking the rule, I'm just bending it. And I'm bending it for my own pleasure and my own perspective and utilization. So
Hmm.
hopefully your stuff will get out of that straight, and hopefully we'll see that 20% of oil start to really trickle in. But even if the war ended tomorrow, the effects of what this administration has done, this is going to be something that we probably won't really start to see any real positive impact. If it was end sometime in June, maybe early 2027, early next year. And it's sad, because the Strait of Hormuz was open before February 28th. Oil was flowing, people were spending $2 and some change for a gallon of gas. And now we will see $5 gas across the country come summer. And that got nothing to do with just looking at who's in office, worrying about ballrooms, floating pools, and arches and foolishness. And I saw Miss
Correct.
Johnson's hand up.
Yeah, I was speaking specifically to the question for myself, where I haven't had to do it on a large scale, but decisions had to be made based on where items were coming from. On the website, I would put, okay, this particular item is subject to this particular tariff. This is the percent. You can create a calculator for the customer to calculate themselves, or you can put a baseline number. You can put a note on the website due to the location of the instrument, part, whatever. It is subject to being held at the Strait of Hormuz, and you can put an update every week. Products having shipped, still in transit, still in transit, still in transit. For
Mhm.
me, as a consumer working with a business, it's about transparency. You didn't invoke the tariff. You aren't doing it for the hell of it. We're all subject to it. So, as a consumer, if the seller is being transparent, I am more than likely to work with them. And in some situations, we've had to partner with 2 to 3 other companies so that we could kind of split the cost so it can hurt less. It will hurt regardless, but it will hurt less. But on the consumer side, transparency is key for me. And I'm
Mm. Yeah, right now we're all getting squeezed. When I'm looking in the grocery stores, everyone's feeling it. And it's sad to see the prices. And
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
mind-boggling. Go ahead, Mr. Davis.
The problem I have is I deal with a lot of the consumers has disposable income, and since everything else is going up, is dwindles down their disposable income,
Hmm.
which gives them a second guess of why do I need this $300 sword or $800 item, you know, and then it's like a consumer confidence level to where the business is not getting what is needed. I'm not getting what I needed out of the business. Part of it is the problem.
Mm. Yeah, we're all feeling it, in some form and fashion, regardless of what type of business that you're going through, unless you're in something that's, well, you can't even say, groceries is not recession proof right now because people are making decisions. It's like, you
Correct.
go in there, spend $200 in a grocery store, and it's like you're sitting there, you're walking out with 3, 4 bags. Like, wait a minute, before that could have been 6, 7 bags. And it's like, wait a minute, it's the same
Correct.
$200. So you start to see the dwindling power of what inflation does. And that's why when you hear those scary statements, and I call them scary statements, when people say, keep your money in a mattress or hide money in your house, it's like, okay, that's good. Yeah, you should have a couple of dollars that you can quickly get access to. But if your money's not out there working, and especially working in a space where it's coming back more pregnant, bigger than the space of inflation, that means your buying power, you're lessening your buying power. That means you can have $10,000 sitting in the house, and it's like that $10,000 is really worth 9,000 and some change. You're like, no, I got $10,000. Okay, go out there and circulate that 10,000 and tell me what you get. Oh my God, potato chips is $8 a bag. Oh my God, it costs $3 or $4 for a 2 liter soda. Mm-hmm. But you had this $10,000 sitting in your house. You thought you was high in the hog because you got 10 grand in the house. Now, if you put 10 grand in the right investment or in the right things that can bring back a return, even if it's only 5, 6%, and you turn around and like, wait a minute, that 5, 6% is still higher than the rate of inflation. That means you're getting a return. Your money is working instead of sitting someplace hiding and doing nothing. So, we're changing the dynamics of how, especially here in the Comeback Collective Circle. It's about making sure that we make the respective choices, not that you have to do some wild swings, but we're here to make sure that you start to become an educated consumer. It's okay to be an educated consumer because that means you're wise with the dollars that you're circulating. And if you're making choices or if you're going to another type of Grocery store because your dollars can stretch a little bit more, or maybe you may not be getting the name brand, but you find out, the store brand is quality is just as high as the name brand, you'd be surprised. That's how Costco, Sam's Club, all these other places, you can start going there like, wait a minute, this stuff is comparable. And it's not that you're being cheap. You just recognize it's like, wait a minute. The dollar's got to stretch. You can't sit there and be upset if you're not stretching the dollar. If you're stretching the dollar properly, then it's going to work out for you. You're not stretching the dollar and you're just beholden to certain brands. It's like, oh, we just only can get this. Okay, no problem. And you notice, oh my God, this thing, this whatever is up 10% or 15% or 20%. Unless you're telling me you got investment vehicles that's giving you 20% interest or 10% interest, that means that's eating away in your buying power. And right now, this administration has ate away at the buying power globally, not just here in the United States, globally. And it's sad, it's disgusting, it's despicable, and we cannot wait till we get out of this menagerie. That's why we have to do our best. And I'm talking to our United States people. We got to do our best to make sure that this Congress gets flipped in November. If we somehow, they still end up with some level of majority in one of these houses of legislature, we have no one to blame but ourselves. That means we allowed them to gut the Civil Rights Act. We allowed the Supreme Court to do all these things to attempt to push us back as second-class citizens. We're at fault. We are at fault. Because we knew this stuff was happening. We saw the Project 2025s. We saw how people who maybe, and who can claim to be, evangelicals or servants, and they believe in God, and you're doing ungodly things. So and that's not even from a theological perspective. It's just the proof is in the pudding. Because even in the good book, it says people will serve other gods and claim that they serve your God. Don't get mad at me. Get mad at the book. The book has already expressed it many, many eons ago. And we've seen it at play. You have the defense secretary, and this is the last thing I'll say before we start to swing this before I close. When the defense secretary can quote Pulp Fiction and act like that, just lets you know. That's all that needs to be said. And Samuel L. Jackson is the moniker that you're going to share in front of a bunch of generals and high-ranking officers, and you come to find out, like, yo, he just quoted Pulp Fiction. But these people talking about they're believers. There's no scripture. That was all part of the script that Quentin Tarantino wrote. That's not even a correct scripture. It's not in there. But you stood there and expressed it with authority and vigor. That just shows you why people across this globe are looking at this nation right now and laughing at us. Before, we used to be well respected, even though we weren't perfect. We still did some terrible stuff, but at least we were respected. Look at your choices. That's what people half of common sense was sitting there like, look what you picked. Are we gonna trust you? Look what y'all picked. And how it's affected the globe. That's what y'all did. We can't blame the Caribbean. We can't blame Europe. We can't blame Asia. That's what y'all did. And it's affected the globe. That being said, as we're going to bring this to close because we're respecting everyone's time, give you the opportunity for some who love to get into their respective AI tools. Any boxes, Nicole? Can we see everything?
We can see everything. No, the promo code's blocked.
Oh, I got to figure this out. That's just. How about now?
Still covering the code.
Still covering the code. I got to figure this thing out. Okay. So anyway, trymagica.com/Gregory, because Galaxy.ai has changed their name. So now it's Magica. And the promo code, which I'll share, is G63LFJW. So if you click my affiliate link at tribemagica.com/Gregory and put in that promo code, you'll get extra credits. They will definitely give you extra credits just for signing up. So not only do they give you a certain amount of credits just when you sign up, but then they're going to give you some bonus credits as well. And these days, those credits are gold because that helps you to do more work to accentuate what it is that you're working on, especially with some of these AI tools. So once again, trymagica.com/Gregory. And the promo code, once again, is G, the letter G, 63LFJW. And with that being said, I can't wait till we come back into this wonderful space and be in concert next week as we continue this conversation, complete this arc, and just be wise over this week. Don't allow anyone to put you in a space where things are not workable for you. Because if it isn't, then, it's not going to be well received. And just be mindful of your dollars, be mindful of what you hear, and we're all dealing with it in our own form and fashion. And we will get through this season, but we have to work to make sure that this doesn't become a lasting effect. So once again, to all you powerful people of the Comeback Collective Circle who are definitely not second-class citizens, remember that as we continue to walk upright, walk with our heads up high, and recognize that this too shall pass, but we have to be part of the difference. So until next week, peace and blessings, and have a great week ahead.
Yeah, good night, all.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.